It was a cold evening in the sprawling city where luxury towers kissed the clouds and the hum of expensive cars never ceased, but in a small corner of one of those grand mansions lived a fragile, innocent little girl named Emily, whose eyes carried both the spark of hope and the shadows of fear. She was just 7 years old, yet the burdens of the world weighed on her tiny shoulders like heavy stones, and as she sat curled up on the marble floor clutching her worn-out teddy bear, tears streamed down her cheeks, her sobs echoing through the empty corridors of the mansion that should have been filled with laughter and warmth, but instead often resonated with silence and the sting of loneliness. Her mother had passed away when she was barely 3, leaving her in the care of caretakers who changed as frequently as the seasons, and though her father, Mr. Jonathan Reed, was a well-known millionaire whose name commanded respect in boardrooms and whose face graced magazine covers, he was a man too busy chasing deals and expanding empires to realize how desperately his only child craved his embrace, his protection, and his love. On this night, Emily found herself cornered by a cruel nanny who had replaced kindness with bitterness, scolding her for spilling a glass of milk, gripping her small wrist too tightly, and raising her voice in anger until Emily, terrified and trembling, whispered, "Don't hurt me, please. I'll be good," her tiny voice cracking like fragile glass, her sobs begging for mercy from someone who was supposed to comfort her, not harm her. The world outside glittered with wealth, but inside, the mansion felt like a prison of shadows where innocence was stifled, and Emily's cries were prayers rising into the air, hoping that somehow, someone would hear them. Little did she know that on this very night, fate had woven an unexpected twist, because her father, who usually returned home late or sometimes not at all, had ended his business meeting earlier than expected, driven by a rare urge he couldn't explain, a whisper in his heart that told him his daughter needed him. And as his sleek black car rolled through the grand gates of his estate, he thought about how long it had been since he had sat beside her, listened to her childish stories, or kissed her forehead goodnight. Inside the mansion, the nanny's harsh words cut through the air like knives. "You're such a troublesome child, always making mistakes. No wonder your father doesn't spend time with you." Words that pierced Emily deeper than any slap could, and the little girl, sobbing uncontrollably, clung to her teddy bear as if it were her last shield, whispering over and over, "Don't hurt me, please, don't hurt me," her cries growing louder, just as the grand double doors suddenly opened with a commanding force, and there stood Jonathan Reed, tall, powerful, and intimidating, his eyes narrowing as the scene unfolded before him, his gaze landing on his fragile daughter's terrified face, then on the cruel hands of the nanny, and his voice, usually calm and measured in the corporate world, thundered through the mansion like a storm. "What on earth is happening here?" The shout so powerful that the nanny froze instantly, her grip loosening, her arrogance crumbling, while Emily's tearful eyes widened in both fear and relief as she realized her father, the man she had been yearning for, was finally there, standing like a shield between her and the cruelty she endured. Jonathan rushed to his daughter, scooping her up in his strong arms, her tiny body trembling against his chest, and as she buried her face in his suit, he felt the wetness of her tears seep through the expensive fabric, a pain stabbing through his heart sharper than any business betrayal he had ever faced, and in that moment, he realized he had been blind for too long, chasing wealth while his little girl silently cried for love. His anger turned toward the nanny, his voice booming with authority, "You dare lay a hand on my daughter? You're finished here. Pack your things and get out before I make sure you never work again." His words like fire scorching the air, leaving no room for defiance, and the nanny, trembling, backed away, her face pale with fear, muttering apologies that fell on deaf ears as Jonathan's entire focus shifted to Emily, whispering softly, "Now, Daddy's here, sweetheart, no one will hurt you again, I promise." His eyes misting as he kissed her forehead, realizing that this moment was not just a confrontation, but a turning point, a chance to mend the broken bond between a father and his daughter. Emily clung tighter, her sobs slowly subsiding, her heart beating faster not from fear but from the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, her father would finally stay, finally see her, finally love her the way she had always dreamed. And as Jonathan carried her up the grand staircase toward her room, he vowed silently that he would never again let his empire steal away the most precious treasure of his life. Outside, the city lights glittered like stars, but inside, for the first time in years, the mansion began to glow with the spark of something far more valuable than wealth, love, protection, and the promise of a new beginning. And dear viewers, if this powerful moment has touched your heart and reminded you of the true value of family, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because more heart-touching stories like this one are waiting for you, stories that will inspire, move, and remind us all that love is the greatest wealth of all.